Village was peaceful until a monster drove in. This wasn't a monster with a terrifying figure. Her face wouldn't make you scream or run, but her heart would terrify you to the bone. The village was peaceful until Mama Fatima drove in. Mama Fatima arrived in Aji like a blessing from the heavens. Her car, a shiny black vehicle that seemed to glow under the sun, became a familiar sight in the village. It was not too luxurious, but it brought joy and excitement to the villagers whenever they saw it. She came bearing gifts, small bags of rice, bottles of oil, small sacks of beans, and other foodstuffs that made life in the village easier. The women whispered in amazement, saying she had the heart of an angel. Men nodded in agreement, grateful for the help that eased their burdens. The children were the happiest. They would run barefooted to the village square, laughing and shouting, "Mama Fatima is here! Mama Fatima is here!" They danced around her car, clapping their small hands and giggling as she handed out sweets or biscuits to each of them. Her presence was like a festival, and her name became a song in their mouths. Her name was Fatima, but everyone called her Mama Fatima. The way she cared for them, the way she smiled as though nothing in the world could make her angry, made the title feel right. To the villagers, Mama Fatima was a gift. But to Mama Fatima, she was doing something far more calculated. She watched the smiles, the excitement, and the gratitude. Every bag of rice she gave, every bottle of oil she handed out, every sweet she placed in a child's hand, it all meant something to her. It was not just generosity. To Mama Fatima, it was a very big investment. One day, as the sun began to set and the villagers gathered to thank her, the village chief, Mr. Taju, stepped forward. He was a tall man with a commanding voice and a face lined with years of leadership. He raised his hands to silence the crowd. "We are truly blessed to have you, Mama Fatima," he said. "Your kindness has touched every corner of our village. On behalf of all of Aji, I thank you for everything you have done for us." The crowd cheered, their voices echoing across the fields. Mama Fatima smiled and bowed her head humbly. But behind her warm smile, her thoughts were cold and sharp. "This village," she thought, "has no idea what I am planning." As the villagers celebrated, no one noticed the glint in Mama Fatima's eyes. A glint that hinted at secrets too dark to see. Mama Fatima had become the heart of Aji. Her generosity had won the trust of everyone. Children adored her, women admired her kindness, and men respected her. Even Chief Taju, the leader of the village, trusted her completely. One quiet afternoon, Mama Fatima approached Chief Taju with an idea. She spoke with a soft and persuasive voice, the kind that made it hard to disagree. "Chief," she began, "I have been thinking about how I can do more for Aji. Your village has shown me so much love, and I want to give back in a big way. I want to open an orphanage here, a home for children without parents. They will have food, clothes, and education. What do you think?" Chief Taju's eyes widened with admiration. "Mama Fatima," he said, "you truly have the heart of an angel. An orphanage will be a blessing to Aji. Whatever you need, we will support you." The villagers gathered and agreed to give Mama Fatima a piece of land near the edge of the village. Within weeks, the orphanage began to rise. Walls were built, roofs were fixed, and before long, the building stood tall and proud, painted in bright colors that made it look inviting. When it was time to hire workers for the orphanage, Chief Taju approached Mama Fatima with a suggestion. "Mama Fatima," he said, "I have one request. Many of our villagers are struggling to make ends meet. If you hire some of them to work at the orphanage, it would give them a chance to earn a living. It would mean a lot to us." Mama Fatima smiled warmly but shook her head. "Chief," she replied gently, "I understand your concern, but running an orphanage is delicate work. I've already brought trained professionals to handle the children's needs. These are people I trust and have worked with for years." Chief Taju hesitated. He didn't want to upset her or lose her help. "If that's what you believe is best, Mama Fatima," he said finally, we will respect your decision. The villagers watched as the orphanage opened its doors. Children without families began to fill its rooms, and Mama Fatima's employees, strangers to Aji, ran the place with efficiency. As the days went by, some elders in Aji began to question Mama Fatima's ways. They had watched her bring strangers into their village to work at the orphanage. It puzzled them why none of their own people were allowed to help. Among the elders, Aremu was the most vocal about this. One quiet evening, Aremu decided to visit Chief Taju. The chief was sitting under the shade of a mango tree in his compound, enjoying the cool breeze. Aremu approached, greeted him respectfully, and sat down. Chief Taju, Aremu began, I really appreciate what Mama Fatima has been doing for our village. She has helped us in so many ways. But there is something I find strange. Chief Taju looked up, curious. What is it, Aremu? Aremu leaned closer and spoke in a low voice. Why won't she allow anyone from our village to work at the orphanage? We have strong women and capable young girls. They can take care of children, can't they? The chief sighed. Mama Fatima said those are her trained professionals. She trusts them because they've worked with her before. But Chief, Aremu pressed, can't she train our women instead? Or at least let them handle the simpler jobs. Not all the work requires this so-called training. You can't tell me that our girls can't bathe or feed a baby. Chief Taju frowned slightly. Aremu, we need to appreciate her for what she's doing. She has brought so much to this village. Let's not spoil it with these kinds of thoughts. Aremu shook his head. Chief, I am thankful, truly. But this situation doesn't sit well with me. I find it suspicious. Chief Taju raised a hand. Ah. Don't say that, oh. If she hears, she might stop this her project to help us. Do you want that? Aremu sat back and sighed deeply. We were living fine before she came, Chief. I just wanted to share my thoughts. But I will respect your decision as the leader of our village. He stood, greeted Chief Taju politely, and walked away. As Aremu left, Chief Taju leaned back in his chair, troubled. For the first time, he began to wonder if there was more to Mama Fatima's actions than met the eye. But he quickly pushed the thought away. After all, Mama Fatima had done so much for them. Surely, she could be trusted. Or could she? Chief Taju had started to feel something special for Mama Fatima. He did not know how it began, but every time she was near, his heart would beat fast. He, most respected man in the village, felt nervous whenever she was close. He liked the way she talked, walked, and smiled, not knowing that was a monster. He had fallen in love with her. One evening, the village was quiet. Chief Taju decided to tell her how he felt. As she drove into the village, Mr. Taju approached her, fixing his cap and making sure he looked neat. When Mama Fatima welcomed him, her smile made him even more nervous. They sat down to talk. After a while, Chief Taju looked at her and asked, Mama Fatima, are you married? Mama Fatima looked surprised. She was not expecting the question. She looked at him carefully and saw the way he stared at her. He looked serious and hopeful. Chief Taju cleared his throat and said, I live alone too. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Not because of your money, but because I like you. Mama Fatima was shocked. She stayed quiet for a moment. Then she gave a small smile and said softly, Chief Taju, you are a good man, but I cannot say yes. I am too busy. I don't even have time for myself. Her words made Taju feel sad, but he understood. I am sorry, he said quickly. I should not have said this. Please forgive me. Mama Fatima shook her head. No need to say sorry, Chief. I respect you for speaking your mind. Chief Taju nodded and stood up to leave. He could not stop thinking of what he had done. But what he didn't know was that Mama Fatima had a dark secret, one that she was trying hard to hide. Mama Fatima couldn't stop imagining what just happened. Can you imagine? This old village man is saying, he really thinks I can stay with someone like him. Me, that is a hot sugar mommy. I deserve some young juicy guy, not that old fool. Fatima sat alone in her small office, her fingers tapping nervously on the wooden desk. The room was quiet, except for the soft hum of her laptop. She stared at the screen, her face tense with worry. An email had just come in. It was from the company she had borrowed money from months ago. The subject line read, "Final notice, loan payment due soon." Her heart raced as she opened it. The message was clear, her loan repayment was almost due, and the amount was enormous. The car she drove into the village, the flashy clothes she wore, and even the funds for the orphanage, all of it had come from that borrowed money. Fatima leaned back in her chair, her mind spinning. She had borrowed the money under the pretense of starting a legitimate business. But instead of building something honest, she had come up with a terrible scheme. She thought of the villagers. They saw her as an angel, a savior who had come to help them. Little did they know that everything she did was part of a grand plan to save herself from the looming debt. Fatima was not the hard-working woman they believed her to be. She hated hard work. She hated stress. She wanted to live like a queen, surrounded by luxury, but without lifting a finger. To her, life was about taking the easiest path to wealth, no matter the cost to others. This orphanage, she thought, is my way out. They will never see it coming. A wicked smile crept onto her face as she closed the email. She wasn't going to let a looming debt or the suspicions of a few villagers ruin her plans. To the people of Aji, she was still Mama Fatima, the woman with a kind heart and a bright smile. But beneath that smile was a greedy, lazy woman who would stop at nothing to protect her illusion of success. As the sun set over the village, Fatima remained in her office, plotting her next move. The clock was ticking, and the debt collectors would not wait forever. Mama Fatima's orphanage quickly became the talk of the village. Word spread far and wide about the colorful building in Aji, where children laughed, played, and were treated with so much care. But it wasn't just the kind treatment that made the orphanage famous, it was the goodies. Biscuits, sweets, and all sorts of treats flowed freely within its walls. Children whispered stories about how Mama Fatima always had something sweet to give. To them, she was a woman who could make their dreams come true with just a wave of her hand. Children in other orphanages across the area started to cry and beg. "I want to go to Mama Fatima's orphanage," they wailed. Some children even pretended to be unhappy in their current homes, claiming they were mistreated. They cried fake tears, telling exaggerated stories just to be sent to Fatima's orphanage. The caretakers at the other local orphanages in the village were confused. Why are all the children suddenly unhappy, they wondered. But the truth was simple, the children had heard about the biscuits, sweets, and endless treats waiting for them at Mama Fatima's place. The number of children in Fatima's orphanage grew rapidly. Rooms that were once quiet now echoed with laughter and chatter. The employees, though overwhelmed, continued to do their work. Mama Fatima, on the other hand, watched the growing numbers with a satisfied smile. "This is exactly what I wanted," she thought. The more children she housed, the more money she would make. To the world, she looked like a saint, a woman who was saving lives. But deep in her heart, she only saw numbers that could erase her debt, build her mansion, buy a luxurious house, and make her extremely rich. She didn't care about the bright future these youngsters had waiting for them. For her, what was more important now was the money. The village of Aji was proud of the attention the orphanage was receiving. To them, it was proof of Mama Fatima's goodness. But the elders, especially Aremu, continued to watch with quiet suspicion. Mama Fatima's true intentions began to surface. The laughter and joy in Fatima's orphanage masked the growing darkness. Slowly and carefully, she set her plan into motion. It started with one child. A bright-eyed boy. Fatima watched him from her office window, her smile cold and calculating. When the time was right, she called on her most loyal workers. "This is the one," she said quietly. Under the cover of night, Fatima and her workers acted. They tied the boy's hands gently, muffling his cries with promises of safety. "It's just a little trip," they whispered, though their faces showed no kindness. The boy, confused and scared, was loaded into a quiet vehicle and driven far away, delivered to a buyer waiting in the shadows. The cycle continued. One by one, Fatima selected children to be sold. She chose carefully, targeting those who seemed least likely to be noticed. With her workers by her side, she tied them up and sent them off to people who paid a high price for their innocence. Chief Taju remained unaware of what was happening. Before Fatima opened her orphanage, she had made a clear agreement with him: no child would be adopted without her notifying him first, and the child must willingly agree to the adoption. "I promise to honor this agreement," she had said, her voice sweet and reassuring. Taju, trusting her completely, believed every word. He thought Fatima was doing her best to give the children better lives. He had no idea that her main plan was far from honorable. Fatima's greed knew no bounds. As her orphanage grew more famous, so did her secret business. She had found her perfect customers: ritualists, politicians, and people in high places who sought dark powers. They needed sacrifices to maintain their influence and strength, and Fatima was ready to provide. Her deals grew bolder. At night, she would meet her buyers in hidden places, exchanging innocent lives for huge sums of money. Some buyers even required children for cooking concoctions, dark brews for powers. Fatima didn't care what they needed the children for. All she saw were the stacks of money they handed over. "This is easier than I ever imagined," she thought as she counted her profits. Her debts were shrinking. She successfully paid back all the money she borrowed, and her lifestyle grew more lavish. The car she drove became fancier. Her clothes were finer. Even her workers noticed how her jewelry sparkled brighter each day. In the orphanage, the children continued to disappear. One by one, they vanished, leaving empty beds behind. The workers too were getting their share. They didn't want to show off like their boss. They were going missing, but who cares? These are orphans, with no families to miss them or raise alarm when they disappeared. Days turned into weeks, and still, her terrible act continued. Fatima's business thrived on this silence. She knew that as long as the children had no one to fight for them, her plan would go unchecked. Chapter 3. Among the orphans at Fatima's orphanage were twins named Taiwo and Kehinde. Taiwo, the older sister, was protective and gentle. Kehinde, her younger brother, often stayed close to her, seeking comfort in her warmth, their bond unbreakable. That evening, Mama Fatima entered the orphanage with her usual cold smile. Her eyes scanned the room, finally settling on Kehinde. "You, come with me," she said, her voice firm. Kehinde stood up, confused but obedient. As he walked toward her, Taiwo rushed forward, grabbing his hand. "Please, take me too," Taiwo pleaded, her voice innocent and full of love. "I want to be with my brother." Fatima paused, her smile faltering for a moment. Taiwo's words were unexpected. "Where are you taking him, Mama Fatima?" Taiwo asked. Her voice was steady, but her wide eyes showed worry. "I can't find my friends." "Where are they all going to?" Fatima's mind raced for an answer, finding what to say. Before she could speak, Taiwo continued, her voice hopeful. "Or are we being taken to a new family?" Fatima, not knowing what to say, saw that as an answer. "Yes," she stuttered, "yes, they are going to new families." "Then I want to go with him." Taiwo begged again. Mama Fatima then said, "Don't worry. I will come back to pick you." Fatima tightened her grip on Kehinde's hand. Her cold, calculating eyes glanced at Taiwo, And she muttered under her breath, "They will pay a higher price for you." She pulled Kehinde away, her hold firm, as Taiwo stood frozen, her heart breaking. "Mama Fatima, please!" Taiwo cried out. But her cries fell on deaf ears. Fatima walked away, dragging Kehinde along. Desperate, Taiwo turned to one of the workers. "Please, help me. Tell Mama Fatima to take me with my brother. Please!" The worker avoided her gaze, pretending not to hear. Inside, the worker thought, this poor child doesn't know this is the last time she will ever see her brother. Taiwo couldn't sleep that night. Her heart ached for Kehinde, her twin brother. The thought of being apart from him was unbearable. They were twins with a special bond. Kehinde wasn't by her side where they normally slept. Something felt wrong, and she couldn't shake the worry that she might never see him again. "I need to go with him," she whispered to herself, tears in her eyes. Taiwo could hear the background sounds of people arranging things as they normally did each night after Mama Fatima came to pick one of them. With determination burning in her chest, Taiwo made up her mind. She tiptoed toward the back door, her bare feet making no sound on the cold floor. She was extremely scared as she knew Mama Fatima never failed to punish anyone who broke the rules. As she reached the door, she noticed a faint light from the hallway. One of the workers was coming. Taiwo froze, her heart pounding. She quickly crouched behind a stack of empty crates, holding her breath as the worker's footsteps grew louder. "Why is this door unlocked?" the worker muttered, stepping closer. Taiwo's hands trembled. She could hear the worker fiddling with the lock. Any moment now, she would be caught. But then, a faint noise came from one of the children's rooms, a cough. The worker paused, turned around, and walked toward the sound. "Who's awake at this hour?" she grumbled. Taiwo didn't wait a second longer. As soon as the worker disappeared, she slipped through the door and ran into the night. The cool air hit her face, but she didn't stop. Her small feet carried her through the village paths. She was scared, thinking that ghosts might catch her at night. But the thought of being separated from her brother scared her the most. She ran to Chief Taju's house. The chief was the leader of the village, and she believed he could help her. Taiwo reached his house, her chest heaving from the run. The house was dark, but she didn't care. She balled her tiny fists and banged on the door with all her strength. Bang! 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 Inside, Chief Taju jolted awake. "What in the world?" he exclaimed, grabbing a lantern. He thought it was a thief trying to break in. "Who is there?" he called out, his voice firm. Taiwo didn't stop banging. She hit the door harder, her desperation fueling her strength. Bang! 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 Finally, Chief Taju opened the door, holding the lantern high. He stared in shock at the sight before him. "Taiwo," he asked, his voice filled with surprise. "What are you doing here at this hour? What gave you the strength to bang my door like this?" Chief Taju wondered what had given this little girl such energy and courage to come to him in the dead of night, banging on his door like a soldier on a mission. Taiwo stood there, her small frame shaking from exhaustion and fear. Tears streamed down her face as she looked up at him. "Please, Chief Taju," she said, her voice trembling. "I need your help. My brother Kehinde, please help me find him." Taiwo knelt on the floor, her small hands clasped together as tears streamed down her face. She looked up at Chief Taju, her voice trembling with desperation. "Please, Chief Taju, I don't want to be separated from my brother," she begged. "You people should take me with him to the other family he's about to be taken to." Chief Taju stared at her, his brows furrowed in confusion. "Take him with you? To where?" he asked, his voice rising. Taiwo's words struck him like a hammer. He leaned forward, his expression serious. "I didn't make any agreement with anyone to take any child anywhere," he said firmly. "Tell me, are you from Mama Fatima's orphanage?" Yes, Taiwo whispered, her voice barely audible. For a moment, everywhere fell silent. A dark thought crossed Chief Taju's mind, a suspicion so heavy he didn't want to believe it. Could it be possible that something bad was happening at the orphanage? I must get to the bottom of this. Without wasting another moment, Chief Taju grabbed his lantern and stepped out into the cool night with Taiwo following him at his back. He moved quickly, waking a few trusted villagers and 2 elders. Something is not right, he told them. We need to go to Mama Fatima's orphanage immediately. The men, sensing the urgency in his voice, quickly gathered themselves. They armed themselves with sticks and machetes, ready for anything. The group marched through the dark village, the glow of their lanterns casting eerie shadows on the path ahead. As they reached the entrance of the orphanage, the night was silent except for the soft rustling of leaves in the cool breeze. Chief Taju raised his hand and gently knocked on the wooden door. The knock echoed in the stillness, and after a moment, the door creaked open. Mama Fatima stood there, her face frozen in surprise. She quickly masked her shock with a forced smile. Chief Taju, she greeted, her voice calm but tense. What brings you here at this hour? Is something wrong? Chief Taju's expression was stern. We have some questions, Mama Fatima, he said. Have you adopted any children out without informing us? Mama Fatima's smile faltered, but she quickly shook her head. No, Chief. I would never do that without your agreement. Before Chief Taju could reply, Taiwo stepped forward, her voice trembling but firm. But my brother is missing. And my friends are gone too. The villagers and elders exchanged shocked glances. Chief Taju's face darkened. Mama Fatima, we need to look around, he said. Mama Fatima's hands tightened on the doorframe. This is not a good time, she stammered. The children are asleep, and I don't want them disturbed. We won't disturb anyone, Chief Taju replied firmly. Step aside, Mama Fatima. She began to protest, giving excuse after excuse, but her words fell on deaf ears. The group pushed past her and entered the orphanage. The air inside was heavy, the silence unnatural. Lanterns lit the narrow hallways as they moved quickly toward her office. Mama Fatima trailed behind them, her face filled with fear. When they reached her office, Chief Taju pushed the door open. What they saw froze them in their tracks. Kehinde was there, tied up inside a sack, his eyes wide with fear. Taiwo screamed. Chief Taju stepped closer, his face filled with anger. Mama Fatima, he shouted. What is the meaning of this? Fatima stammered, I can explain. He was causing trouble. And then you tied him up like he is a bush meat. You must speak the truth. They untied Kehinde. Taiwo quickly hugged him. Kehinde felt relieved as his body was filled with rope marks. They inspected her orphanage. Where are the others? Chief Taju demanded. Where are Taiwo's friends? Fatima began to mumble excuses, her words making no sense. The villagers looked at her with growing disgust and horror. Chief Taju's voice boomed, enough. Tell us the truth, or you will answer to the entire village. Mama Fatima stood there, silent and trembling, as the reality of her wickedness began to unfold before their eyes. Chief Taju and the elders stayed at the orphanage until dawn. The weight of what they had discovered was heavy, and none of them spoke much. Mama Fatima sat in silence, knowing her time was up. The truth had caught up with her. The next morning, the elders gathered all the children and asked them to speak. One by one, the children shared their stories, their voices trembling. She would come and pick one of us most evenings, one child said. We never saw them again, another added, tears rolling down their face. The elders listened, their faces grim with anger and sorrow. Chief Taju's hands tightened into fists as the full extent of Mama Fatima's evil was revealed. Mama Fatima and all her workers were marched to the village square. The entire village gathered, their murmurs of shock and disbelief filling the air. The once praised Mama Fatima now stood before them, her head bowed, her confidence shattered. "You will tell the truth now," Chief Taju commanded, his voice firm. At first, Mama Fatima tried to deny it, but the pressure of the crowd and the evidence was too much. She finally broke down, confessing everything. "I sold them," she admitted, her voice shaky. "I sold the children to buyers, ritualists, anyone who paid the right price." The crowd gasped, some covering their mouths in horror. The elders handed Mama Fatima and her workers over to the police, ensuring they would face justice. Meanwhile, the remaining children were relocated to other orphanages, where they would be safe. In jail, Mama Fatima believed she could bribe her way out. "I'll be free soon," she told herself, clinging to the money she still had. But no amount of money could save her from the punishment that awaited her. The ghosts of the children she had betrayed haunted her nights. Their faces appeared in her dreams, their cries echoed in her ears. In her small, dark cell, she could feel their cold presence, whispering words of pain and anger. The torment grew worse with each passing day. Fatima could not eat, sleep, or think. Her body grew weak, and her mind unraveled under the weight of guilt and fear. By the time the sun set on her final day, Mama Fatima was no more. The woman who once pretended to be an angel was destroyed by the very lives she had taken. Chief Taju apologized to the people and promised not to be more careful when making decisions. The village slowly returned to its peaceful ways. But the story of Mama Fatima and her wickedness was never forgotten, a reminder of how evil can hide behind the kindest smiles. Taiwo and Kihind remained inseparable. Indeed, the love of money is the root of all evil. It is never worth making money illegally, especially at the downfall of another soul. Remember, there is no peace for the wicked.